Hello everyone and welcome back to Versus, the show that takes art and makes it competitive. And today, it's the program that will take BFFs and turn them into MCRs, which stands for Marvel Cinematic Rivals. I'll come up with something better at some point. It's Benedict Cumberbatch taking on his good pal Tom Hiddleston in the Great British Bromance Bonanza. That's good. That's why I get to host.
Silence your ego.
Two of the finest actors working today will be going at it for 5 grueling rounds. I'm Mark Ellis, and my job is to decide who's better at what and which is on first. In one corner, it's Benedict Cumberbatch, who's done everything from Shakespeare to Marvel to Sherlock and a couple historical epics sprinkled in. And in the other corner, it's Tom Hiddleston.
Your savior is here!
Who's done everything from big-time blockbusters to gothic romances to tiny little indies, all to much critical acclaim. Now, we may know them best as Doctor Strange and Loki from those talking picture book movies, but today, it's a thorough examination of their entire careers, inside and out, and I left my surgical gloves in the car. Again. Here's how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer/audience score. Round 3, iconic roles. Round 4, memorable moments. And then we'll do a wild card round that could involve who does the better cosplay of themselves at Comic-Con. Or who's on the fast track to win an Oscar, or who does the better show on the small screen. We got Sherlock and the Night Manager. It might as well make them fight it out, right?
Try me, Beyonce.
Look, given their shared movie history, I don't know who's faster, but they're both going to lose to Warhorse, which is conveniently the film that they both worked on together as their careers were shifting into high gear. A bromance was born, and we were all just lucky to witness it.
I've never met this man in my life.
But the Highlander rules are in effect here, meaning there can be only one. The winner gets to stay in the MCU, and the loser has to remake The Phantom. Yeah, slam evil.
Shall we begin?
Let's get it on. Round 1, box office. If we're looking at which actor can boast more movie theater coin, we might have picked two of the best, because their theater receipts are longer than the ones they dole out at CBS, and that's thanks in large part to the MCU, but not limited to just that galaxy.
I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Since I'm a nice fellow, I'm going to go ahead and give them each $156 million to start, which is how much Warhorse made back in 2011. From there on, you fellas are on your own. Unless, you're in the same MCU movie, which was the case for Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, and kinda Thor Ragnarok. Endgame still has acclaim as the most successful big screen flick ever, with its almost $2.8 billion draw backing it up. Infinity War also cracked $2 billion, and Thor Ragnarok did $850 million, which was more thanks to Tom than Benny.
Doctor, actually.
Do I really have to say Benedict Cumberbatch the entire show?
Call me Steven.
Hiddleston, or Hids, made his MCU debut with the OG Thor movie and has starred in every one of those films since. The Asgardian brothers kicked off with a $449 million take. Then the sequel, The Dark World, drew in $644 million worth of Earthling bucks.
Have I made you proud?
But in between is when we really learned how to love or hate or swoon over Loki. That's when he was the primary antagonist in The Avengers, a movie that would go on to crack the $1.5 billion mark. So Tom got into the MCU first. How's that gonna help him out against B-Slice?
Look, my name is Dr. Stephen Strange.
Well, as Doctor Strange, Cumberbatch's standalone flick pulled in $676 million, but it was far from the actor's first huge movie. He played various roles in the Hobbit prequels. He was the Grinch to the tune of $513 million, and he played, definitely we swear, it's not Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, spurring it on to a $467 million haul.
I am better.
At what?
Everything.
Tom Hiddleston isn't just resting on his MCU laurels either. As one of the lead humans in Kong Skull Island, he ushered in $561 million, and the rom-com hit Midnight in Paris, in which Tom played F. Scott Fitzgerald, sported its way to $162 million worldwide. However, Hiddleston also has tiny movies like I Saw the Light, Only Lovers Left Alive, and The Deep Blue Sea, which I'll point out right now is not the shark movie with LL Cool J. I know you wanted to see Loki swim with genetically enhanced Makos, so did I.
Not my forte.
Anyway, none of those three movies even did $4 million on the big screen. While Cumberbatch had similar returns with films like The Whistleblower and The Mauritanian, he's also got way more blockbuster firepower. Literally, as is the case with World War I's epic 1917, that earned $370 million across the globe, and World War II's The Imitation Game, which jackade $227 million at the multiplex.
What'd he say? I don't know. He's probably getting paid by the word.
I might need a Turing machine to calculate all those incredible returns from Tom and Ben, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that their median movie hauls in an Asgardian load of bread as well. Tom Hiddleston actually has the higher per flick average at $587 million every time he suits up. Cumberbatch's is a measly $453 million, so you'd think this would be an easy win for the night manager guy, right?
Can't see into the future, I'm not a witch.
No? Why'd you dress like one?
Nah, not so fast. Benny's total dollars generated is $14 billion against Tommy's $9.39 billion. And while the vast majority of Hiddleston's huge hits are from the MCU, Cumberbatch has more evenly spread the wealth to other franchises and standalone successes, which means I'm giving the win to Benedict. It's a close call. Both competitors have arguments. I can't say no to $14 billion.
Is this fun for you?
Round 2, Tomatometer/audience score. So usually when you see eye-popping box office numbers like a combined $24 billion, you might think to yourself, yeah, but I bet those movies got ripped apart by the critics. Well, to that I say, stop being so negative. If the MCU has taught us anything, it's that you can fly an armored suit if you're rich enough, and critics and audiences can both gush over your films at the same time.
Oh my.
Both of these dudes can brag about freshness for days. You're welcome, ladies. And that includes their comic book movie outings. The Avengers is fresh at 91%, and that ain't even the top of the heap. Thor Ragnarok is 93%, and Endgame is 94%. Hiddleston has Archipelago? Peleg? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
No, I don't suppose you do.
But it's 96%, and the perfectly accented Midnight in Paris at 91%. Cumberbatch has The Power of the Dog tying Endgame at 94%, and 12 Years a Slave is at 95%. So yeah, these dudes are fresh.
Do you think flattery will keep you alive?
Doctor Strange is at 89%, as is The Imitation Game, and Atonement is 83%. I loved that movie when I saw it. No idea if I'll still like it, haven't seen it in a minute. I'm also going to give a major shout out to The Whistleblower at 75%, which ties it with, you guessed it, the Between Two Ferns movie that Cumberbatch did have a role in.
You got your start doing theater and independent films.
I did.
And now you're acting in Marvel movies. How good does it feel to sell out?
Oh, and The Penguins of Madagascar is at 74%. Basically anything starring Benedict Cumberbatch is fresh, right?
Oh, clearly.
Oh, well, The Fifth Estate is just 35%. The other Boleyn Girl is 43%. And remember that one Jungle Book movie? Well, he's Shere Khan in the other one, and that's at 53%. Still rotten.
Well, thank you for putting it so delicately.
Okay, so I'd say the door is ajar, but barely if Hiddleston wants to stroll through for a round 2 win. What's that? The dude only has one rotten movie?
What did you expect?
Like, ever? If it's King Kong, I'm walking right out of this shoot. Okay, good, we're safe. Skull Island and Resort is 75%, Crimson Peak is 72%, and even Thor the Dark World is safe at 66%. Okay, and now for Tom Hiddleston's one rotten movie, drum roll please, or in this case maybe a jaunty country guitar, it's the Hank Williams biopic, I Saw the Light. I thought he was good as old Hank, but that's actually the lowest Tomatometer depth that either actor reaches.
Why'd you gotta say that?
But when we look at averages, it's Tom on top with a 78% per film average on the Tomatometer to Benedict's 74%. And even though they flip beds on the audience score side of things, with Cumberbatch besting his bud by an average of 72% to 65%, that only one rotten movie ever stat is special. Let's keep an eye on that, and maybe don't make any Hank Williams Jr. movies anytime soon.
Oh, I surely know that.
For funsies, Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Hiddleston have both starred in successful TV series as well. Tom has The Night Manager at 91%, Henry V, The Hollow Crown at 98%, and Loki is super fresh at 92%, mostly thanks to the alligator. Benedict was also in that Henry V thing, as well as Sherlock at 78%, and Melrose Place at 90%.
Look, if you're not going to start making sense, I'm just going to have to put this thing back on.
Whoops, no, that's Patrick Melrose at 90%. Tom Hiddleston is happy because he gets the very slight nod in round 2, and that ties our game 1-1.
Surprise!
Round 3, iconic roles. And now we get to properly gush about how great these guys are as Loki and Doc Weird, respectively.
It's strange. Maybe.
It's not just that they're good at wearing capes or being sneaky.
No, I wear a cloak.
These are A-list talents, and they give everything they have to these performances. And that bleeds over into Comic-Con, where they've both been seen on stage in full costume, much to the delighted squeals of fans like me.
I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Stephen Strange goes through such a tumultuous first hour in his debut movie, it's a good thing that Benedict Cumberbatch is at the wheel. He can pull off super evil,
You care so much, don't you?
evil, or just elitist douche with equal ease.
All right, answer me this bachelor's degree.
For Strange, it was the latter, but only for a few fleeting scenes before a tragic accident tosses him into a new world bigger than anything this man of science could have comprehended. The realization of his new gifts and how to not abuse them is the journey the character takes us, the audience, on, and Benedict is a sight to behold. But does anyone have more fun in the MCU than Loki?
Madam, a god doesn't plead.
I mean, come on, that's a Shakespearean role of a lifetime, because you get to either be the bad guy,
Is this not your natural state?
the anti-hero,
I'm gonna burn this place to the ground.
I'll show you where my desk is. You can start there.
the temperamental brother, or the trickster, or maybe all of those characters rolled into one. Which path those are being tapped into at any moment is a mystery that audiences take delight in unpacking. As Thomas Sharp in Crimson Peak, we meet a very different mentality. One is locked into a house even as they might want to leave. Hiddleston pulls this role off with such a beautiful combination of inferring that this house is his everything.
It's a privilege we were born into, and one we can never relinquish.
At the same time, his eyes hint that he needs to get the hell out at some point. He can also beat the crap out of scary prehistoric bugs, snakes, primates. His soldier-turned-fortune hunter has a reassuring leadership presence that comes from his physicality. As I'm shoving popcorn into my face in an air-conditioned theater, I believe that this guy could help bail me out of a jam on some uncharted island like the Skull one.
Let me list all the ways you're gonna die.
Meanwhile, Cumberbatch certainly has roles where I don't want him to bail me out or even be in the same state as me. He can be that menacing. As a plantation owner who knows what the right thing to do is, he shows us cowardice at the crucial moment that meant so many slaves longing to be freed.
I have a debt to be mindful of.
12 Years a Slave is heartbreaking for so many reasons, one of which is Benedict's refusal to be an ally. Then we get to The Power of the Dog, which earned him his second Academy Award nomination. He can be cruel and sympathetic-ish as Phil Burbank, a cowboy who shows glimpses of humanity even as his life path feels like it's already been spelled out. Heck, when Benedict Cumberbatch isn't even on screen, he can still be a film's most lurking presence. It's roles in The Grinch and Smaug that might get him the edge here. For The Grinch, him and the dog Max have such wonderful chemistry that I was rooting for them even before I was supposed to. They also pretty much live out my ideal existence, so that helped. Just me, the dog, a place to relax. I don't need money because if you got too much coin laying around, chances are there could be a giant dragon snoozing inside of it.
Did you think I did not know this day would come?
The Hobbit films I'm a little mixed on, but seeing Smaug emerge from his golden slumber is epic. And it's a great reminder for all you kids to never wake up Uncle Mark when he's napping.
I instilled terror in the hearts of men.
Both gents have a ton of range, so much so that it might factor in a little later in this very show. But for now, real life, the fictional, fantastical, and authentic roles inhabited by Benedict Cumberbatch slightly outweigh those of Tom Hiddleston, although I do really want to see a battle between Sherlock and Loki. I think Loki would take that, but Benny wins this round and he goes up on his buddy 2-1.
Who actually believes this bunkum?
Round 4, memorable moments. And now we've arrived at the round that most of you tuned in for. It wasn't to see me, your incredibly handsome host,
Why would you think that?
or to see the almost as attractive Tom Hiddleston or Benedict Cumberbatch here in studio,
Rude.
because that was never gonna happen, right? We didn't try? Did we make a call? We made a call.
I mean, you didn't think I'd really come and see you, did you? This place is disgusting.
But now we get to the phase where we relive all those amazing scenes and sequences and settings that made these stars and their films into Hollywood legends. It's an ongoing process, but come on, Hulk tossing Loki around like a rag doll, Doctor Strange begging the Ancient One,
Teach me.
they're great gifts, but hey kids, did you know that the parent of a GIF is the movie itself?
That is hilarious.
So before we get to those moment-churning MCU roles, let's open with an appetizer, like Khan! Okay, we knew it was going to be Khan the whole time, but still, getting to the end of Star Trek Into Darkness to witness that reveal was pretty damn cool. And we got to see an awesome Spock versus John Harris, I'm kidding, I'm really Khan battle. I wouldn't want to tussle with them, but when a talking dragon's voice is even more imposing than the look, you might want to pull a Monty Python and... Smaug literally says, I am fire, I am death, which is going to be a swipe left for me. Hiddleston has plenty of solid moments in his other big flicks as well. I love when we meet his James Conrad in Kong Skull Island. It's a dingy, low-lit bar. We have no idea who this dude is or what he wants, but we do know that he better be on our side. And he lives up to that promise once we're in the wildest jungle kind of sort of known to man. And even though he's great in the movie, my favorite moment is still Kong in the water. He's just chilling, getting a bath, doing some frontier medicine. I really think we'd be friends. But with Thomas Scher from Crimson Peak, we gotta be friends because I'm not coming over to your place. You can crash on my couch.
Of course. Forgive me.
That house is so creepy. And Hiddleston plays along with the tomfoolery every step of the way. He has such amazing chemistry with his co-stars in that film and Tilda Swinton in Only Lovers Left Alive. Not enough folks caught that Jim Jarmusch film, but them on screen together is magic. Oh, and did I mention, he plays a vampire musician in it, so, get on watching that. Before we get to those Tilda Swinton, Benedict Cumberbatch moments, let's remember how great he was as Alan Turing, a role that earned Ben his first Oscar nomination. When he cracks the Enigma code, it's stand up and cheer worthy, but it's also the scenes that sadden us that are noteworthy. In A Less Tolerant Time, Turing was hiding his sexuality as best he could, but when it's discovered, it's a heart-wrenching moment to witness. If we do veer into the fertile ground of the MCU, Doctor Strange is a good entry point. Even though Marvel had been cranking out beloved hits for years by the time this one came around, the good doctor reminded us that there's always something new and breathtaking to discover. His first stroll as the guy we know from the comic books is perfectly handled, as is the jarring car crash that changes the course of this a-hole's life forever.
You think you see through me, do you, or you don't?
What? He was a great a-hole. Just ask Rachel McAdams' character. They have a chat at his place that shows what they could have had and why he ruined it all. Men. Am I right?
This is the part where you apologize.
Cumberbatch is also always welcome as a bartender in a post-credits scene, and I do get a kick out of how Doctor Strange interacts with other fellow Avengers. His first meetup with Tony Stark in Infinity War is a blast, and he has a nice big bro kinship with Peter Parker in Spider-Man No Way Home. That is, until the kid traps Steve in some multiverse waiting room. Damn teenagers.
Ow.
Pete broke some good guy rules, but his heart was in the right place. However, as Loki always reminds us, sometimes it's just more fun to be bad. We feel his tortured soul as the other brother from the first Thor film on, but it's cleverly hidden by a devilish sense of humor and a willingness to follow through on threats. The climax of the Avengers is a feast that is largely on the dime of Loki. And I do love how we revisit that sequence from a different perspective in Avengers Endgame. Loki can talk his way into and out of any situation. Just about any situation, thanks for the reminder. Thanos. He's such a cool, conniving villain that when Black Widow tricked him with his own overconfidence, we as the audience realized that Natasha is much more than just a cool martial arts master. Benedict Cumberbatch eked out a win in the best roles round, but here, it's the parts played by Tom Hiddleston that gave us the more memorable moments. If it did come to a tie, I'd take Tom's Hank Williams crooning over Benedict's Little Charles in August Osage County.
Well, I've never been a man of many words.
No offense, but you ain't no Hank Williams. And with that, we're suddenly tied at 2-2 as we head into... Oh, right, I'm supposed to ask. What time is it? It's time for the wild card round. Now you see me. And if you've ever been to a magic show, kid's birthday party, or saw one of those Jesse Eisenberg movies, you know that the next logical line is, now you don't. Well, for Cucumber and Hiddlebum...
That feels weird, but I'll allow it.
I think that's what they call each other. We see them as many characters on screen, but the lion's share of recognition is from their MCU roles, Doctor Strange and Loki. Okay, so that's where we see them, but this round we'll be asking where we don't. Which actor has a performance on their resume that is most unlike their iconic comic book role? They're both going to give a great effort here because of their incredible training as thespians that goes all the way back to their days as youths. Benedict Cumberbatch's first work as a professional actor was in the world of Shakespeare. Leading up to that was a master's degree in classical acting from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. Meanwhile, I majored in communications.
I had hoped for a bit more.
Tom Hiddleston also gained prominence and award nominations for his stage work.
Can we not discuss my personal life in public?
And in 2008, he was featured in a West End revival of Ivanov, acting alongside some bloke named Kenneth Branagh. Branagh would go on to direct Thor, and after working with Tom, he cast him as Loki. So Hids and Batches come from pedigrees way too admirable for me to be giving them those nicknames. As we're disappearing into a role, for Cumberbatch, I'm going to go with Phil Burbank from The Power of the Dog. And with Hiddleston, I'm going to roll with Freddie Page in The Deep Blue Sea. And again, there's way less sharks in it. Don't even watch this movie for the sharks. Paige is charming like Loki is, but whereas Loki is constantly thinking a few steps ahead, Freddy is more overtly tortured by his wartime hauntings. His hope is to sing away the post-traumatic blues he feels for the loss of his friends and the atrocities he had to witness and commit for his country. Hiddleston is unreal in this part, and he's so good at giving us a simmering temper that's just below the surface. But, like those sharks in another blue sea, occasionally it breaches the surface.
Why do you come round again soon when I've got some self-respect back?
As Phil Burbank, Cumberbatch took a very method approach to playing this layered guy who can definitely be mean-spirited, seldom tender, and always secretly yearning to be accepted for who he really is. He's a closeted cowboy who can still seem so confident and self-assured. In those few moments when we see real humanity, it's a guy who loves nature, feels its rhythms, and can enjoy the stillness it provides, even as an emotional tornado is constantly brewing deep inside. It's such a tough call between these two performances. Both might give tiny glimpses into their MCU characters, but they firmly inhabit these roles with such devotion and conviction that we cease to acknowledge them as Benedict and Tom. That's Phil, and that's Freddy, until the credits are done rolling. So before they play me off the stage, I'm gonna go with Benedict Cumberbatch, and the deciding metric might be that he's gone home with a handful more of awards than his good buddy Tom, but we could revisit this matchup in a few years and maybe they'll show up then. Guys, we offer parking.
Heavens no.
But to stump for Tom Hiddleston, I will say that his emerging from the darkness as Loki in Comic-Con's famed Hall H years ago still stands as the you had to be there moment from that wonderful event in San Diego. I was lucky enough to be on hand, and the way that he completely commanded that room full of over 6,000 fans was truly a sight to behold. Doctor Strange, a couple years later, that was really cool too. Well, that does it for us here today at Versus. The decision has been rendered, but remember, it's just my take. I'm not a jury, I'm not an executioner, I don't even have my own daytime judge show. Yet. So hit me up on social media at Mark Ellis Live with your opinion, and be sure to follow us here at Rotten Tomatoes for all the latest in the world of movies, TV, and whatever Hitty and Cumberbund are up to. They're good lads and great sports. Thanks for watching, especially you, Tom, and you, Benedict. I'm Mark Ellis, and it's time to hop into my Ford Fusion for the glorious purpose of going home and walking the dog.